After map tells you port 21 is open, you know FTP is running. Port 445 is open, SMB is there. Port 80 is open, there is a web server. But knowing a port is open and knowing what that port actually offers you are two completely different things. Enumeration is the discipline of systematically extracting every piece of information from every service on your target. The version string on the FTP banner. The usernames exposed through anonymous SMB. The hidden admin directory that Gobuster finds in 12 seconds. The SNMP community string that hands you the entire router configuration. These are the details that turn a list of open ports into a real attack plan. This is Ethical Hacking Episode 5. In this episode you will learn how to grab service banners using Netcat, how to enumerate SMB shares and users with Enum4 Linux and smbclient, how to pull SNMP data with smbclient, how to extract valid usernames from an SMTP server, how to verify FTP anonymous login and grab accessible files, how to discover hidden web directories and files with Gobuster and ffuf, and how to synthesize every finding into a structured attack surface map. Every technique in this episode runs against your Metasploitable VM from episode 2. Everything is legal. Everything is isolated. Everything applies directly to real authorized engagements. Banner grabbing is the simplest and most fundamental enumeration technique. When a service accepts a connection, it almost always introduces itself by sending a banner. That banner can contain the software name, version number, operating system details, and sometimes configuration flags. Netcat is the tool that lets you establish a raw connection to any port and read that banner. On Kali, NC followed by the target IP address and the port number. For example, NC192.168.56.10121 connects to FTP on Metasploitable. The response is 220 Pro FTPD 1.3.1 server. Now you know the exact FTP daemon version. That version string goes directly into ExploitDB in episode 6. Netcat is your universal socket tool. It works on any TCP port where a service speaks first. Banner grabbing beyond FTP, NC to port 22 reveals the exact OpenSSH version string. NC to port 25 reveals the mail server. NC to port 80 returns nothing useful since HTTP requires you to send a request first. Instead send a raw GET, type GET/HTTP/1.0, press enter twice, and the server responds with its full header including the server field. Apache 2.2.8 on Metasploitable. Telnet works identically for banner grabs on text protocol services. For the HTTP server header more reliably, use curl I followed by the target URL to retrieve only the response headers. The server header tells you the exact web server version. The X powered by header often reveals the backend language. PHP 5.2.4 on Metasploitable. Every version string is a potential CVE entry. SMB, the server message block protocol on port 445, is one of the richest sources of enumeration data on any Windows or Linux network. In your Metasploitable lab, Samba runs on port 445. Enum4 Linux is the dedicated SMB enumeration tool pre-installed on Kali Linux. Run it with Enum4 Linux, followed by the target IP, where a means run all checks. Enum4 Linux queries the target with null sessions, which are unauthenticated anonymous connections, and extracts the NetBIOS workgroup name, the machine name, the OS version, the list of shares, the list of users on the system, the password policy, and the RID cycle, which is a brute force of user identifiers that reveals accounts Samba exposes through the API. On Metasploitable, Enum4 Linux will return the complete user list including root and other accounts, shares including TMP and the IPC administrative share, and the workgroup. smbclient is the interactive SMB client for connecting to specific shares, smbclient followed by 2 backslashes, the target IP, a single backslash, and the share name, with N for no password. For example, smbclient /192.168.56.101 /TMP N. At the SMB prompt, type ls to list files. Type get to retrieve a file. On Metasploitable the TMP share is world writable, meaning you can read and write files directly. On an authorized engagement this is a critical finding. Document the exact share path, the access level, and the full file listing in your report. SNMP, the Simple Network Management Protocol, runs on UDP port 161 and is one of the most overlooked attack surfaces on networks. SNMP exposes detailed device information, hostname, running processes, network interfaces, installed software, connected devices, and sometimes credentials. The critical weakness, SNMP version 1 and 2C use a community string as authentication. The default community strings are public for read access and private for write access, and they are left unchanged on millions of devices. On Kali, smbclient v2c, c public followed by the target IP. On Metasploitable this returns the entire SNMP tree including running processes, interfaces, and the routing table. SNMP check provides a cleaner formatted output, SNMP check, c public followed by the IP. Both expose the full system inventory through a default credential. SMTP, the simple mail transfer protocol on port 25, reveals valid usernames on the system. The SMTP vrfy command asks the server to verify whether a user exists. The expn command expands a mailing list alias into real addresses. Many SMTP servers expose these even without authentication. On Kali, connect with Netcat, NC192.168.56.10125. The server introduces itself with a 220 banner. Then type vrfy root. If the user exists, the server responds indicating presence. Type 5rfyAdmin, type 5rfy nobody. SMTP user enum automates this. SMTP user enum, mvrfy, u/usr/share/wordlist/metasploit/unix_users.txt, t followed by the target IP. It iterates through the word list and reports every user it finds, extracting the full account list without credentials. FTP on port 21 deserves focused enumeration before attempting any exploit. The first check is always anonymous login. Does the server allow you to authenticate with username anonymous and any email address as password? On Kali, FTP followed by the target IP, then username anonymous, then any password like test@test.com. If anonymous login succeeds, type ls to list the accessible directory. On Metasploitable, the FTP server permits anonymous access and the root FTP directory is /, meaning you have read access to the entire file system unless Unix permissions block individual files. This is a critical misconfiguration finding. In the map scripting engine from episode 4, the FTP anon script detects this automatically. Sudo map script equals FTP anon p21 followed by the target IP. Beyond anonymous login, FTP enumeration includes identifying the exact daemon and version from the banner. VSFTPD 2.3.4 on Metasploitable contains the infamous backdoor, confirming whether FTPS is supported or all transmission is clear text, checking for world-readable files that expose sensitive data, and verifying write permissions and writable directories. The Metasploit auxiliary module scanner /FTP/FTP_anonymous automates anonymous FTP checking. In console, use auxiliary /scanner/FTP/FTP_anonymous, set RHOSTS to your subnet, and run it. For VSFTPD 2.3.4 specifically, the backdoor was introduced when attackers compromised the official VSFTPD distribution package in 2011 and inserted a shell spawning backdoor triggered by a specific port sequence. Map detects the version. Episode 7 shows you how to exploit it. Here the job is documentation, flag it as a critical finding, note the version, and note the accessible paths. Web content discovery is the process of finding URLs, directories, and files on a web server that are not linked from the public-facing pages, including hidden admin panels, backup files, old configuration files, and development artifacts that were never intended to be exposed. Gobuster is the primary tool on Kali. It takes a word list and fires HTTP/GET requests for each path in rapid parallel threads, reporting every path that returns a non-404 response. Command, Gobuster dar, u http://192.168.56.101 w/usr/share/wordlist/derb/common.txt. The ffuf flag specifies the target URL, w specifies the word list. On Metasploitable, Gobuster finds /phpMyAdmin, /DVWA, /tweaky, /Mutillidae, multiple vulnerable web applications running on the same host, each a separate attack surface for episode 8. ffuf, short for fuzz faster you fool, is the faster and more flexible alternative to Gobuster for web content discovery. ffuf uses the fuzz keyword as a placeholder in the URL and replaces it with each word list entry. ffuf, u http://192.168.56.101/fuzz, w/usr/share/wordlist/derb/common.txt. ffuf adds filter flags that Gobuster lacks, FC404 to filter out 404 responses, FS to filter by response size to remove false positives, and MC to match only specific status codes. For file extension fuzzing, ffuf, u http://192.168.56.101/fuzz, w/wordlist.php.txt.boc to search for backup files and configuration files. Both Gobuster and ffuf work against virtual hosts, APIs, and hidden parameters, not just directories. On every authorized web target, running both tools is standard practice. After running every enumeration technique, banner grabs, SMB enumeration, SNMP walk, SMTP user verification, FTP anonymous check, and web content discovery, you assemble the findings into an attack surface map. This is the bridge between reconnaissance and exploitation. On your Metasploitable target the map looks like this: FTP port 21 running VSFTPD 2.3.4, a known backdoor vulnerability, critical, and exploitable in episode 7. SSH port 22 running OpenSSH 4.7, outdated, check for user enumeration. Port 80 web server, /phpMyAdmin accessible, attempt default credentials. /DVWA running on PHP 5.2.4, intentionally vulnerable, all OWASP top 10 attacks in episode 8. SMB port 445 with anonymous share access, pivot and file extraction. SNMP UDP 161 with community string public, full system inventory exposed. Structuring the attack surface map, organized by severity. Critical findings include SMTP backdoor and anonymous SMB write access. High severity, phpMyAdmin exposed to the network, SNMP default credentials. Medium, SMTP VRFY user enumeration, verbose banners exposing version strings. Informational, anonymous FTP read-only, SNMP read-only inventory. Each finding gets the service, the port, the exact version, the finding type, the risk, and the recommended remediation. A structured finding for VSFTPD, service FTP, port 21, version VSFTPD 2.3.4, finding backdoor binary, CVSS score 10, remediation upgrade to 2.3.5 or later immediately. This structure follows the standard penetration testing report format. Every finding you document here becomes a section in the professional report in episode 12. In episode 6 you will take this attack surface map and feed every finding into a structured vulnerability analysis workflow. You will use searchsploit and exploitDB to find public exploits for every version string you documented here, run OpenVAS or Nessus against your Metasploitable lab to see automated vulnerability scanning in action, and learn to prioritize findings by severity and exploitability. The gap between an open port and a working exploit is exactly what episode 6 bridges. The enumeration you did here is not extra work. It is the foundation that makes episode 6 fast and accurate. The authorization boundary is absolute and identical for every episode. Your Metasploitable VM on the host-only network is always legal. Bug bounty programs with defined in-scope asset lists permit the enumeration techniques you learned here against those specific hosts. Client engagements require a signed statement of work with an explicit scope listing the IP ranges, permitted tools, and timing windows. Enum4 Linux, snmpwalk, Gobuster, and ffuf generate logs on the target. Without written authorization they constitute unauthorized access. The tools are legal. The target makes it legal or illegal. Written scope makes it a professional engagement. Your lab exercise for this episode, open Kali and confirm Metasploitable is running on your host-only network. Run enum4 Linux against Metasploitable and note the user list. Run snmpwalk v2c, see public against it and count the running processes. Connect to the TMP SMB share with smbclient and list the files. Run Gobuster dar against the web server and find every exposed web application. Build your attack surface map before moving to episode 6. Drop your findings in the comments. Tell me which vulnerability you think is highest severity and why. Subscribe and hit the bell so episode 6 lands in your feed the moment it drops. I will see you then.